and it looked like Project B is not done targeting superstar WNBA player Caitlin Clark. It's a $5 billion deal at stake. Guys, for this one here.
Okay, so Project B just reportedly offered Caitlin Clark $5 billion to leave the WNBA. Yeah, you heard that right, $5,000. The whole league is about to have a complete meltdown over this. This Saudi-backed venture is going after the only player who actually brings in the numbers, while other WNBA stars are just hoping to even get an invite. Listen, Ajo Wilson and basically everyone else watching this has to be feeling some kind of way. Seriously, drop a comment right now. If someone offered you $5 billion to leave your job and play basketball in a new league, would you even blink?
Information coming out about the Project B project. Some people saying that it ain't backed by the Saudis and Your Majesty. A lot of people saying that Maverick Carter pulled out. One thing I can tell you is that they're definitely targeting Caitlin Clark. I mean, articles is coming out the pipeline. Everything is coming out that they want Caitlin Clark to be a part of this thing.
Let's be real about how crazy this whole thing is. Project B, this mysterious new basketball league, keeps saying it's not backed by Saudi Arabia, but then it totally is. And they're reportedly targeting Caitlin Clark with offers in the billions. Not millions, my friend, billions with a B. That's the kind of money that makes even the most loyal WNBA player start doing some serious mental math about whether loyalty is really worth turning down generational wealth. And spoiler alert, it's not. Nobody is that loyal, and anyone who claims they would be is just lying to themselves, and let's be honest, everyone else too.
League makes funding announcement after $5 billion targeted mid aim to attract who? Caitlin Clark. Told y'all I wasn't lying, bro. This is very serious information because this could change the trajectory of Caitlin Clark.
The report suggests Project B is gunning for a $5 billion valuation, and they're ready to offer star players salaries that make current WNBA contracts look like spare change. We're talking base offers around $2 million per season, which by itself is already way more than the WNBA's maximum salary. But for someone like Caitlin Clark, who is absolutely the biggest draw in women's basketball right now, her offer would be insanely higher. Think about it. She could make more in just one season with Project B than she'd make in her entire WNBA career. From a financial standpoint, that's not a tough decision at all, no matter what kind of loyalty people might expect from her.
If Caitlin Clark be a part of this Project B thing, this could definitely hurt the WNBA. I mean, this could hurt the WNBA very bad because let's say Caitlin Clark be all like, okay, I'm going to do it. But in the clause, it might says, well, you can't play for the Indiana Fever no more. We'll just buy you out your contract. We'll come up with some way to get you out of that deal. You got to be slowly, exclusively Project B.
Here's where it gets really interesting, and honestly, super uncomfortable for everyone else in the WNBA. Project B needs star power to actually get off the ground. They need names that even casual sports fans recognize and care about. And right now, in women's basketball, there's really only one name that fits that description at the level they need: Caitlin Clark. Sure, Ajo Wilson is a multiple MVP and champion. Angel Reese has a huge social media following. Breanna Stewart is an all-time great, no doubt. But none of them move television ratings and attendance numbers the way Caitlin does. The data is clear on this. When Caitlin got injured during the playoffs, WNBA viewership dropped by a whopping 55%. That didn't happen for any other player, so Project B is reportedly going all in on Caitlin, because they totally get that she's the key to making this whole thing work. Without her, they're just another alternative basketball league that might attract some good players, but they won't get mainstream attention. With her, they instantly become a legitimate competitor to the WNBA, and potentially the more attractive option for players looking to really maximize their earnings. That's why the reported offer is so massive. They're not just buying Caitlin's skills on the court, they're buying legitimacy, they're buying media attention, and they're buying a fan base that will follow her wherever she goes.
We're going to be talking a little bit about the Project B League and whether or not Caitlin Clark should take the money to go and play in that league, because we know that if the rumored payment for Nneka Nwumeke is $3 million or is $2 million, we know Caitlin Clark's getting more than that. And we can be honest here, Caitlin Clark is going to be paid more than Nneka Nwumeke.
Now, let's talk about how Ajo Wilson and other WNBA stars are probably feeling about all this. Ajo has been the face of the WNBA for years, She's won multiple MVPs, championships, and is the league's most decorated player. But Project B isn't reportedly offering her billions. They're not building their entire launch strategy around signing her. This new league trying to revolutionize women's basketball apparently doesn't think Aja is essential to that revolution. That has to sting, no matter what public statements she might make about WNBA loyalty. Angel Reese is likely in a similar spot. She's got a huge social media following, she's marketable, and she's got tons of personality. But the reports aren't about Project B offering her generational wealth to build the league around her. It's all about Caitlyn. The entire narrative is focused on Caitlyn. And for someone like Angel, who's positioned herself as Caitlyn's rival and often seemed frustrated by the attention difference, watching Project B basically confirm what everyone already knew. That Caitlyn is in a completely different tier of marketability. Has to create some really complicated feelings. Plus, the structure of Project B is really interesting because it shows their priorities. They're planning 6 teams, 11 players each, for a total of 66 players. The season would run during the WNBA offseason. Starting in November 20, games would probably be played in various international spots with a big presence in the Middle East, given the Saudi backing. The whole operation is designed not to directly compete with the WNBA schedule-wise, which is smart strategically. They're not asking players to choose between leagues initially, they're offering extra income on top of WNBA salaries. Except for the biggest stars, that's probably not entirely true. If Project B is offering Caitlyn the kind of money being reported, there will almost certainly be exclusivity clauses. They're not going to pay her billions and then let her maintain her primary identity as a WNBA player. They'll want her to be the face of Project B, which likely means eventually choosing between leagues if both take off. The WNBA would obviously want to prevent their biggest star from splitting her attention and loyalty with a competing league. This sets up a future conflict that's going to force decisions that nobody wants to make public yet. And look, the Saudi Arabia connection is the elephant in the room that everyone keeps trying to ignore or downplay. The league organizers keep insisting that Saudi money isn't involved, while also admitting that Saudi companies are partners and the league will have a significant presence in Saudi Arabia. That's not exactly a convincing denial, right? The reality is that Saudi Arabia has been aggressively investing in sports as part of their Vision 2030 to diversify their economy and improve their international image. They've spent billions on golf through LEV, soccer, various investments, boxing, Formula One, and now, apparently, basketball. The ethical questions around accepting Saudi money are definitely complicated and uncomfortable. Saudi Arabia has one of the worst human rights records in the world, especially when it comes to women's rights. So female athletes accepting millions or billions to play in a league backed by a government that systematically oppresses women creates obvious contradictions that are hard to navigate. But here's the thing. Professional athletes aren't ethically obligated to turn down life-changing money just because the source is problematic. That's an unrealistic standard that people rarely apply to themselves in their own career choices. Caitlyn Clark specifically would face enormous pressure and criticism if she accepts this offer. She's been positioned as a role model and a trailblazer for women's sports. Taking money from Saudi Arabia would absolutely undermine that image in the eyes of men. But she's also a 23-year-old woman with an opportunity to secure generational wealth for herself and her family. Asking her to turn that down for abstract principles that won't pay her bills is a huge act. The people who would criticize her for taking the money are generally not people who have turned down billions of dollars for ethical reasons themselves. The impact on the WNBA if Caitlyn leaves would be catastrophic. The league just had its most successful season ever, entirely because of the attention she brought. Attendance records were shattered, TV ratings were unprecedented. Merchandise sales exploded. All of that was driven primarily by one player. If that player leaves for a competing league, the WNBA returns to the obscurity it lived in before she arrived. That's not an exaggeration, the data supports it. The 55% viewership drop when she was injured just shows exactly what happens to WNBA interest when Caitlyn isn't playing. Kathy Engelbert and the WNBA leadership are probably in full panic mode right now, even if they're not admitting it publicly. They've spent months taking Caitlyn for granted, letting her get physically targeted without proper protection, failing to market her, and generally treating her like she should just be grateful for the opportunity to play in the WNBA, instead of recognizing that she's the one doing the league a favor by being. Now a competing league is offering her potentially billions to leave, and the WNBA has zero leverage to keep her beyond appealing to a loyalty that, frankly, they haven't earned. The other players in the WNBA are in a really complicated position. On one hand, many of them resented the attention Caitlyn received and complained about the coverage disparity. On the other hand, they benefited enormously from the increased viewership, attendance, and revenue that her presence generated. If she leaves, their salaries will likely decrease because league revenues will plummet. So they have a direct financial interest in her staying, even if they don't want to admit. The envy some of them might feel about her getting this massive offer is directly at odds with their need for her to stay in the WNBA to maintain their own earnings. Naomi Osaka has already announced she's joining Project B, which definitely gives the league some credibility. She's a legitimate star with name recognition beyond just tennis fans. But her joining doesn't have the same impact that Caitlyn joining would have. Osaka is past her competitive prime and hasn't been as dominant recently. Caitlyn, though, is entering her prime years and is the biggest name in women's basketball by far. Her decision will completely determine whether Project B becomes a real threat to the WNBA or just another alternative league that eventually fizzles out. The timing of this is also a big deal. The reported start date of November 2026 gives Caitlyn one more full WNBA season to increase her leverage and see how the league actually treats her. If the 2025 season involves more of the same physical targeting, inadequate protection from officials, and the league taking her for granted, that definitely makes the Project B offer way more attractive. If the WNBA actually steps up and treats her appropriately, that might make staying more appealing. But based on how the league has operated so far, betting on them suddenly changing their approach is probably not smart. The reported $2 million base salary for Project B players is interesting because it's already more than double what most WNBA players make. For mid-tier and role players, Project B would be an obvious choice financially, even without thinking about prestige or attention. The WNBA simply has no way to compete with those salaries under their current revenue structure. So Project B could potentially poach a huge portion of WNBA players just by offering more money, even before we consider whatever premium they're offering stars like Caitlyn. The 6-team structure is unusual and suggests Project B is starting small with plans to expand if they're successful. 6 teams of 11 players is manageable from a financial and logistical standpoint, while still providing enough competition to be legitimate. If the league proves viable in its first season, they could expand to 8 or 10 teams relatively quickly. They're being smart by not overextending initially. It's better to start small and be successful than launch big and fail spectacularly. The claim that they're targeting 66 players total, which is about half the WNBA's roster spots, is strategic. They're not trying to replace the WNBA immediately. They're trying to complement it initially, then potentially outcompete it over time, as they establish themselves. That's a smart approach because it reduces resistance from players who might be worried about burning bridges with the WNBA. You could play in both leagues initially, collect paychecks from both, and then make a decision about exclusivity once Project B has proven itself viable. The financial backing, whether it's technically Saudi or not, is clearly massive. You don't offer $2 million base salaries and target a $5 billion valuation without serious money behind you. The denials about Saudi involvement are just semantic. Saudi companies are involved, the league will operate significantly in Saudi Arabia, and the money is coming from Saudi-connected sources. They can structure it through London-based holding companies all they want, but everyone knows where the money originates. The denials are just PR management to avoid the inevitable criticism about sports washing. For Aja Wilson specifically, this situation has to be frustrating on so many levels. She's been the best player in the WNBA by all the traditional metrics. She's won everything there is to win. But when it comes to marketability and leverage, she's just not in Caitlyn's stratosphere. Project B's reported focus on Caitlyn confirms that publicly in a way that's probably pretty uncomfortable. Aja can tell herself that she's loyal to the WNBA and doesn't need validation from a new league, but watching someone else get offered potentially billions while you get standard offers has to create some really complicated feelings, regardless of public statement. So yeah, Project B is reportedly offering Caitlyn Clark billions to leave the WNBA. And every other player in the league is watching their worst nightmare potentially unfold right now. If this gave you a new perspective on the situation, smash that like button and subscribe for more. Drop a comment, is there any amount of WNBA loyalty worth turning down $5 billion? Or is everyone taking that money?